Hey, Kids Cook Real Food. Katie Kimball here for the Healthy Parenting Connector. And today we are talking about health in a way that people don't always talk about it. Sometimes we think about health as something that needs to be regained when someone is sick. But what if we thought about health as a main focus of our life all the time, even before something bad happens? Wouldn't it be great if you could figure out if your child was heading toward good health or heading away from good health? That's what we're talking about today. I've got Dr. Brian Stenzler with me, founder of the D.R.E.A.M Wellness Score, and he has a completely unique perspective on health, which I think is very important and underserved. Thanks for being with us today, Dr. Brian.
Thanks for having me, Katie. I've been looking forward to this for a while.
Yeah, Dr. Brian and I are completely aligned on the way we look at families and kids and how important it is to build these habits young, right? Again, to not wait. We don't want to wait for a crisis. We don't want to wait for something to go wrong before we take the time to care about raising healthy children. And I know you all are on board. So a little bit about Dr. Brian's background. He is the best-selling author of D.R.E.A.M Wellness, the 5 keys to raising kids for a lifetime of physical and mental health. He has a doctor of chiropractic and a master's in sports health science and some other certifications that I don't really understand, but that's okay. He actually ran a chiropractic clinic for 20 years, and now he's thinking bigger. How can I bring these messages of health to the world, and his knowledge of like the nervous system, because, you know, how interesting is that? We have a lot of guests on here, Dr. Brian, who like start with the gut or they talk about the brain, but you're more, as a chiropractor, you're more into like this whole alignment thing. And so I think we're going to jump into a little bit of that today. But also in Dr. Brian's background, he has a passion for working with athletes, which is cool, and spent many years providing chiropractic services at the US Golf Open Championship Wellness Team. How great is that? But more than anything else, and I know this is what I think is most important in life, he enjoys spending quality time with his wife, Brooke, and son, Zion. And Zion is he 6?
He's 6, just about 6 now.
Yes. So super fun learning to read. He's about to like, his view of the world's about to explode, because I just had my 6-year-old turn 7, and like there was an obvious shift in the way he talks about the world. It's so fun to watch. All right. So that's your official background, blah, blah, blah. But why? Like, what is your passion? How did you get into this topic and chiropractic and wanting to go beyond just postural alignment?
You know, it's funny. I never thought I'd be a chiropractor. You know, growing up, I wanted to be a movie producer. Grew up on Long Island and just wanted to go to UCLA or USC and make movies. That's what I wanted to do. I won't get into the long, convoluted story as to why that didn't happen, but I still think I will make a movie one day. It'll probably be a very health-related movie, maybe a documentary. But you know, one of my bucket list items is to be on the stage during the Oscars. I don't know if I'll be receiving an Oscar, giving an Oscar, or sweeping up the floor during the Oscars, but I will be on the stage during the Oscars at some point, someday in my life. But when I decided to go into healthcare, my immediate thing was I was educated about physical therapy. And so I was going to school upstate New York, and then I was going to go to Syracuse. When I made the transfer from theater and film to pre-med, you know, I was going to go to Syracuse, finish up, get my master's in physical therapy. They didn't have a doctorate of PT at the time. And while I was in college and undergrad taking all those science classes, my mom started dating this guy named Nat in Long Island. And Nat was a retired police officer from New York, the real NYPD blue kind of guy, tough, you know, badass sort of guy. Oh, sorry, shouldn't have said that. But tough guy and really super nice. And one of the very first times that I met him, he asked me why I chose physical therapy. And I didn't really know much about it, but I was a personal trainer, you know, kind of paid my way through college and personal training. And I was always into health and fitness. And I kind of saw physical therapy as the evolution, you know, the next way of helping people stay active and moving around. And he said, did you ever think about being a chiropractor? And I said, no, I didn't even know what chiropractic was. I didn't even know how to pronounce the word. And I said, what is chiropractic? And he goes, I don't really know. He's like, but my son just started school at Life and he loves it. And I've never seen him happier, more principled, more focused, more purposeful, and everything else. He's a different guy. He's like, you should talk to my son, Steve. I said, okay. So I call up Steve and we start talking on the phone regularly. And he's telling me all about chiropractic, about how the body is a self-healing, self-regulating organism, and that they don't use drugs and surgeries to bring the body back to balance. And, you know, they do proactive approach towards health and wellness. And just everything that he said resonated with me because I was never that guy that did drugs, pushed or prescribed as a kid. I didn't drink alcohol, in high school, very, very, very little. That just wasn't my thing. I always treated my body like a temple. I would order salads as a meal before salads were actually on the menu for anything other than a side. So I'd ask for like 2 or 3 side salads with maybe some chicken or something. So it was always a part of my life, but I never knew about chiropractic. So as Steve educated me more and more about it, I felt like this was my calling. And then my mom and Nat were set to get married during our holiday break, at the end of the year. And so I was going to meet Steve for the first time at the wedding. And he was planning on taking me to chiropractic offices that whole week. He was off from school and I was off from school. And so when we planned out that entire week, and then we were going to meet at the wedding. A day and a half before the wedding, Nat, Steve's dad, drops dead suddenly.
Oh my goodness. I could feel like a sad part coming. Oh, that's awful.
Yeah. So, I mean, one of the most tragic things, somebody could go through in their life, here I am, my mom is about to get married. Steve is about to celebrate his dad's wedding. And so I meet Steve at his dad's funeral instead of his dad's wedding.
Oh my gosh.
Of course, I go up to Steve, give him a big hug. And he says to me, so what time Monday should I pick you up? I'm like, what? Like, I did not think that was still happening. But Steve, like his dad said, was so on purpose, so focused that he knew he wanted to bring as many people into this profession as possible that were the right type of people. Huh. And that week I became a chiropractor, essentially. I went around and met the greatest, the best minds in chiropractic. And even beyond the chiropractic thing, I thought about Steve's dad, Nat, who was 44 years young when he passed, which is 5 years younger than I am now, just to give perspective. Uh-huh. And, when Nat woke up that morning, he was, planning on seeing friends, planning wedding stuff, did not think that was going to be the day of his last breath. There was not even a possibility. He had no knowing the day before that the next day was going to be his last day. And that is so often the way that people live their lives. Tragically, we wake up feeling fine, thinking we're healthy, and then God forbid we end up not finishing the day or finishing the day with some type of terminal diagnosis, as if the person was perfectly healthy the day before. And they're not. They may be without symptoms. We refer to as being asymptomatic. But the World Health Organization defines health as a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. So just because somebody doesn't have a known disease or symptom does not mean that they are healthy. And so not only did I figure I was going to be a chiropractor that week, but I also dedicated my life towards helping people live beyond how they feel and making it more about how they function. And I was really inspired to think about, well, Nat, while he may or may not still be alive today, had he had a different lifestyle, we won't know. But what we do know is that living a certain lifestyle will put the odds in your favor. And, Nat was a child once. And maybe when Nat was a child, if he had, or his parents had made different decisions, his trajectory would have been different. And so that's why I've dedicated my life towards helping families, and the parents raise healthy kids naturally. So they could go through life not feeling like good enough has to be good enough, but we could be great. And we don't have to live a life of mediocrity. Because I always say, once you lick the lollipop of mediocrity, you'll suck forever. And when you say everything in moderation, that's what it leads to. So I always say excessive goodness and a little bit of bad stuff, but we could delve more deeply into that in a bit. But that was my path, from film and theater to chiropractic, something I never expected I would do. And not just being a musculoskeletal chiropractor that helps people after injuries and accidents and, work comp things and stuff. I always had a pregnancy, family wellness practice, newborns. That was it. I had 2 practices in New York, 3 practices in San Diego, and our wellness centers encompassed, we had chiropractic, massage, nutrition, empowerment coaching, yoga, Pilates, organic cooking classes, all the things I talk about in my book and in the D.R.E.A.M score, except now I don't do it in a facility. I do it through educating parents the way that we're doing this right now through online courses and master classes that are all coming. So I just feel I could reach so many more parents this way than being confined to a box, in an office, a brick and mortar building.
Yeah. And you've done both. And I think what's so inspiring about your story is that the way you talk about chiropractic is amazing. It's definitely a calling for you. I was so surprised that you said PT, because I know PT and chiropractic can kind of be at odds, as as far as the way they treat people, the way they talk about things. And also, I mean, I love that you focus on the kids, right? That you want to get people where it starts. You want to get people where it matters to prevent instead of just help people heal. So I know that you even avoid the word sick. And so I think this is a paradigm worth spending some time on, right? That you said health is not just the absence of disease. So how do we, when we think about healthcare, I mean, could there be any bigger buzzword than healthcare right now? But we're not talking about sick care, healthcare. Let's kind of define the way you want us to think about our kids' health right now.
Oh, I love that. Thank you for asking that question. When a child has a fever or a runny nose or the coughing, we say that that child is sick. And I just kind of want to reframe that whole process. It reminds me of a story of when I was in school, when I was in college. I was a big fan of St. John's University. I grew up not too far from there. I always went to the basketball games. And I remember two, I think they were lacrosse players or something, that went out drinking one night, and they were celebrating a victory. I think it was St. John's. I probably shouldn't say that, just in case people want to research it. But anyway, they were out drinking, and they were doing shots of tequila to celebrate. And they were drinking the exact same tequila, and they were doing the same amount. And they were just basically going, one after another. And, one of them was really inebriated, did not feel well at all. And the other one, he was able to continue and stuff, that basically it took him a little bit longer. And so the next morning, the one who was inebriated a little bit quicker woke up with your typical hangover, vomiting, headache, everything that, we don't need to talk about what a hangover is like, right? The other guy didn't wake up the next day. He died of alcohol toxicity, alcohol poisoning. So when somebody wakes up with a hangover, they so easily often say, I woke up sick from alcohol. But who was the sick one? The one whose body recognized the toxin, the poison, and got it out through vomiting and going to the bathroom? Or the one whose body was sort of disconnected and didn't recognize the toxin, and it overtook him and basically caused him to demise, to pass away? And when we look at the body, it has its own self-regulating organisms, as I mentioned earlier. At 101 degrees, bacteria begin to immobilize, and at 102 degrees, they get killed off. Yet when somebody has a fever of 100, 101, 102, even 103 degrees, we get so freaked out and want to lower our kids' fever, as if that's the bad thing. The fever is the good part, as long as it stays under control. But that's what's there to kill off the bacteria, the viruses, the pathogens, the germs. And we're so quick to want to get rid of the symptoms, right? If someone has a bellyache, and they're vomiting or something, they want to take something to suppress it. They're keeping the toxins in their body all too often. When you have a lot of coughing, you're getting the bad stuff out through the phlegm. Our body produces an antiviral every single second of every day called interferon. You don't need to think about it. Your body just does it. And so if our body's going to produce the interferon and want to get the dead, the debris out of the body, it's going to do that through the nose, through the mouth, through coughing, through the urine, whatever it is, however it's going to get it out. And when we suppress our symptoms, we have to be very careful. So I define sickness as when the body doesn't do what it's supposed to do. So that lacrosse player who didn't recognize the toxin, that person was sick. And I very rarely use the word sick because it's often misused. So I encourage people to recognize the fact that when they have symptoms, you've got to look at it. You've got to be careful and make sure they don't get out of control. But to acknowledge that most of the time when you have symptoms, the body is doing exactly what it's supposed to do. And so what are you really expressing? Are you expressing sickness or expressing health at that time? And so when I have a symptom, or my son or my wife has a symptom, and people say, are you sick? We're like, no, we're expressing health. Because words have power. And I believe that what you speak about, you bring about. That's in Proverbs, that's biblical, not just from the movie The Secret, right? Law of attraction. And so when you say you're expressing health, what do you think you attract more of? Health. And when you say that you're sick, what do you think you attract more of? Sickness and disease and infirmity. So I just encourage people to just get rid of the word sick out of the vernacular, except for in very rare circumstances, because most of the time, you or your child, when you have a cold or other such symptoms, you're really just expressing health.
I love that. And your story kind of blew my mind, because when you're talking about the way the two people reacted, of course, I thought you were going to say that the second guy, whose body was handling things, I thought maybe he started out with greater health, I guess, right? That he could handle more. But I completely see what you're saying, that there was a disconnect between his symptoms and the toxins he was putting in his body. Very powerful. So instead of saying I'm sick, we're going to say my body is expressing health. I almost feel like it's a battle. Like my body is in battle.
Yeah, it's doing exactly what it's supposed to do.
Oh.
I have parents that come to me, and I just heard a speaker, I'm trying to remember who it was recently, was talking about, parents are always asking, us wellness providers, how do I strengthen my kid's immune system?
Yeah.
As if the immune system is not already strong. Everyone, they're born, unless there's actually a problem, like some type of dependency or whatever. Most people have a great functioning immune system. The question they should be asking is, how do I not weaken my child's immune system? And
okay.
that is,
can I ask that question? Go.
well, that could be the rest of the podcast, because the whole idea of the dream lifestyle is to, what causes the body to go in disarray, right? The nervous system goes out of balance and stuff like that due to the inability to adapting to chemical, physical, or emotional stressors, which would go in greater detail. So how do you not weaken your child's immune system is avoid and neutralize as many chemical, physical, and emotional stressors as possible. And that will put you at the place where we were created to fight disease and infection naturally. Our body is an amazing warrior. Like you said, we have our white blood cells to do what they need to do. Natural immunity, innate immunity, acquired immunity, all of those things are very, very, very strong. They're inherent in each and every one of us. I mean, the trillions and hundreds of trillions of bacteria that are on our body from the moment we enter this planet. You would think, anyone would take down a baby, but no, our body knows which are the good bacteria, which are the bad bacteria, and so on and so forth. So you don't want to weaken a child's immune system. Make sure that you avoid and adapt to as many chemical, physical, and emotional stressors as possible.
That is amazing. I love the New York style of like, those bacteria are going to take out the baby. No, they're just cracking me up. So my family has been profusely expressing health the past couple months, and I did not participate in any of that until 2 nights of very short sleep. And I was like, yep, you get what you deserve, Katie, because that's when how do you, it's very hard to say it's very hard to avoid saying that's when I got sick. Right. But that's when I got the Kimball virus that was knocking out one after another in my family. And I'm like, I completely deserved that, right? Because that was a physical stressor. Rather than building my immunity through sleep, I knocked it back. My immune system had spent some of its valuable budget of warrior time. So you wrote a book, you wrote A Labor of Love, and with it comes a score, which is really interesting. We get a lot of numbers in health. But these numbers are completely different. So tell us a little bit about the DREAM score and how this is continuing to flip the paradigm of kind of the medical world.
Yeah. So, it was over a decade ago that I had the idea of writing a book, and I was concerned that I'd even be able to get a pamphlet, 30 pages or 40 pages, ends up being 450 pages. Mm-hmm. But don't worry, for you listeners, you could still, with the DREAM score, you can get through the book in under 2 hours. So don't freak out when you hear it's 450 pages, but it is quite a Bible or encyclopedia of health and wellness. It's the manual that you were never given, when your child was born. And
yes, I always say that we don't get a parenting handbook. So this is, at least for health, the parenting handbook. That's awesome.
Right, exactly. At least for the health side, not for the parenting side, so much the parenting for physical and mental health. I'm still, having a 6-year-old, I'm still learning the parenting things, but at least I know I'm putting things in the right orders and everything. Then I learned from parenting experts. So basically, when I was writing the book, I noticed that when I was doing consultations with my practice members, I didn't use the word patients because patient means to suffer. And so I would always say practice member because they're participants in the process. So I would talk to them and they would be asking me all these questions. And I would want to tell them about why their kids constantly getting these ear infections. Besides the fact that the spine's out of alignment and the nervous system's not adapting properly, they're getting these ear infections. The kids are getting colic. The parents are getting this problem and that problem. And I ask all these questions about lifestyle, and I see the kids have similar problems in the parents because they all have the same lifestyle.
Sure.
And so I created this survey, I don't know, 5, 10 years ago, where it was just a bunch of questions. And then I would have to sit down with the family for like 3 or 4 hours and go over all the results with them and all the suggestions. I'm like, I cannot do this anymore. For one, I don't have the time and they can't afford me to do that. I had just a lot of people. And as much as I was passionate about that stuff, it was not something I had the time to do.
One-to-one, right? Yeah, that sounds like our prenatal counseling had 160 question tests, and then we had to sit down for 2 hours. It's not fun.
Exactly. So I had the survey pretty much dialed in, but I didn't have a way of delivering the information. And so that's where I created, I decided to make the book, The Report. So essentially, when a parent takes this survey, it's the #1 lifestyle assessment tool. It'll take them about 20 to 25 minutes to complete this. And so it's not like one of those 3-question Facebook things. It's going to tell you what kind of animal you are or superhero. This is going to actually give really good information to let you know. It'll serve as an indicator of your current health status and your child's future health, and current as well. And so you take the questionnaire and you get an instant report, and it'll give you some very quick guides in the report, like a 2-sentence summary. And if you want to delve into any particular topic, it will tell you exactly where in the book you need to read. So you could read anywhere from 1 to 5 pages of information on that topic. And so that's why I say you can get through the book quickly if you only want to read the things that show up in the Dream Score. And this way you can actually tackle the most important things first. So, it was an interesting thing, I know, because when you took the Dream Score, it's kind of like, well, what's more important? Which ones do I tackle? And depending on how you score will determine how many things show up on your report and how many pages you need to read. But most people, anything that shows up on the Dream Score report is equally important from my perspective. However, from the reader's perspective, somebody might think well, I can't sleep at night. How do I fix that? Or my kid is a terrible eater. How do I fix that? Or a terrible sleep. How do we fix those things? So you as a parent may choose to read certain sections first, but make sure you check it off. So this way you get to everything in the book that you need to get to. And then of course, if my 1 to 5 page explanation does not get it done, Dr. Google will get you plenty of information, and we'll be providing online courses and master classes on much deeper issues as my readers say, hey, I'd really like to know more about this particular topic, which is why I'm going to bring experts like you into this field, into my masterclass world, and let them know about what you do, because you would help so many of my readers in so many different ways. And so I don't want to be jack of all trades, master of none. I want to inspire parents to know that they can make changes. It's not that hard to make the changes. Give them the bits of information that I can give them, but then provide them with the resources and information from the experts in those individual fields.
And it's a super cool way to personalize, right? Because how many, show of hands, everyone out there, how many books do you have on your shelf that you read the first chapter and didn't get through? These are their big tomes on health. And sometimes it just feels like too much. So this is a really cool kind of Cliff Notes way to flip about and put sticks and Post-its in and stuff and really personalize it. Would you recommend, Dr. Brian, to take the Dream Score for a child once and then go back through and take it for yourself as an adult? That would be separate?
Yeah, so I recommend that the parent takes it, and depending on the age of the child, when the child gets a little bit older and they're starting to make decisions for themselves, then the parent could take it with the child. But the truth of the matter is, if it's a baby, the parent takes it and that's it. Because whatever the parent is doing, that child is exposed to. So for example, if a parent is, smoking cigarettes, for example, or drinks a lot of alcohol, or engages in a lot of gossip, or has a lot of negative stuff where they're watching, violent movies and things like that, that's seeping into the child, into the baby and stuff like that. So that's why I say that it serves as a predictor of where the child is and going, because, what's kids' favorite game to play? Follow the leader. So the kids are going to follow their parents. So I always encourage parents to be the leader that they want their kids to follow.
I'm totally going to have my teenagers take this. Now that you said that, I'm thinking, one of my goals as a parent is to help my kids gradually take ownership of their health. That's really, really hard to do with teenagers. I know you don't have one yet. They're a different species. And so I think it'd be really interesting, and even to compare against mine, like,
Yeah.
wow, mom's really stinking it up in the sleep category, but look at you guys, because mom makes you go to bed like a big meanie pants. You're actually doing really well in the sleep category. Perhaps that is one of my predictions as somewhere where we'll have a discrepancy between myself and my teenagers. And what I love, I mean, you just mentioned violent movies, right? How many doctors are talking to people who walk into their office about media consumption? Hardly any, none. And that's one thing I love about this, is that it's so broad and it's so holistic. You take health way beyond the physical, and I think you even take it beyond the mental. And so I would love you to share a couple of aspects of health, in air quotes, from your book that you would like to see parents being really intentional about, that are maybe a bit out of what we would expect from a health book.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, nutritional aspects are going to be a big thing that that parents are going to track to. So, it's one of those things where there's so many nutrition books out there. So I don't really want to delve into those right now, other than if you're going to want to get a general guideline on health and nutrition through nutrition, it's just there are certain things to avoid, right? How do I not weaken my child's immune system? Avoid corn syrup, avoid food coloring, avoid artificial, sugars, avoid hydrogenated oils. Those are 4 deal breakers from the diet portion of the D.R.E.A.M that I have. The 5th deal breaker in diet is avoid gossip. Right. So it's one of those things where I define diet as anything that goes in from the outside world to the inside world. So it's everything you eat, drink, taste, touch, smell, feel, hear, all the movies you watch and all the people you spend time with is just as much part of the diet as your food consume. So if you're gossiping, that is not good. That's garbage. And the old computer term, garbage in, garbage out, GIGO, that plays in for anything from your external to the internal world. And that's what diet is. So R is for relaxation. Maybe I'll give one tip for each thing if I can.
Because we're spelling dream for those of you who weren't tracking. D for diet is the first letter in dream. R is relaxation.
Yeah.
Okay, with you.
That's giving your body a chance to call time out, to reset, repair, regenerate, and rejuvenate yourself. So if I were to give one tip on relaxation, I would add in, besides the importance of sleep and everything, those are the obvious things. So we talk about what's something that's not as obvious for parents: meditation. Learning how to meditate and have quiet time. Even if you don't know how to meditate, there are resources in the book that could teach you how to meditate. There are online courses that people could take on meditation, but teaching your kids to meditate as well. One of the things that I loved, I think out of the box, and, my son, when he went to preschool, went to a very different out of the box learning preschool, and they taught like mindful moments for the kids. Like they would teach them how to relax, how to breathe, even if it's just for 5 minutes. And so, I see my son now, like we'll talk about, hey, let's take a mindful moment, and he'll sit back, he'll breathe and all that. So it's really cool.
That is neat.
E is for exercise. That's any activity that requires physical or mental exertion. So not just exercising in the gym or going for a long walk, but also doing like crossword puzzles, reading stimulating magazines, and so on and so forth. And I think the biggest thing on the E, the biggest tip that I would give on the exercise portion of it, is to just keep your body moving. And that one's more obvious than the others, but keep your body moving. It's extremely important to do that. Whether you know how to exercise or not, how to work out, you've got to move. I'm going to skip A for a second, and I'm going to jump to M. That's mental wellness. That's connecting your inner purpose and passion to your outer goals and tasks in all phases of life, being right with your self-esteem, self-worth, self-values, and so on and so forth. This is creating a life where when you wake up in the morning, instead of being like, oh God, it's morning, like, oh God, it's morning. Like you're excited about the day, you're ready to tackle it, and you're putting your armor on for the entire day. And if something goes awry, like you get a bad test score or something bad happens at work, you're not totally stressed out. You're able to just let it bounce off and just move forward. You're inner directed. You're not allowing outside influences affect you internally, and so on and so forth. So my biggest tip on mental wellness is teaching your kids about affirmations. And if you're not doing them yourself, start doing them. Again, I have a section in the book on affirmations. I have a workbook that can actually help you teach your kids how to create their own affirmations, and you can create your own affirmations. So I think that's really important. And I don't think that it's talked enough about in regular health books. So you do see it in different places, but affirmations, I was a kid growing up, it was kind of joked about. Saturday Night Live, they had a skit with Stuart Smalley. I don't know if you remember that. He'd be like, I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people like me. And
oh, like that is familiar. Yeah.
Remember that? So I think it was Michael Myers that did that character, Stuart Smalley. But anyway, that's what people thought of, affirmations 20, 30 years ago. More
And
people are doing them
it was
now.
woo woo, it was silly.
Right,
It was
right.
only for like the unintelligent. But you're telling us like elevate that it's literally what we need to be telling ourselves and our children every day.
Yeah, I mean, there was some interview years ago about the most successful people in the world, and I asked like, what was one thing that they have in common? They all do affirmations. So if it's good enough for these billionaires, I think it's good enough for anybody raising a child for themselves.
So I'm going to lay down on your couch real quick, because from multiple health professionals, I have a child who has been recommended to do that, right? To do positive affirmations, list your limiting beliefs, and on the other column, list positive affirmations. This child thinks it is the stupidest thing anyone has ever heard of, and is completely like treats it like a toxin. Like this child's allergic to it. Any tips for getting a kid on board with this?
Well, I think it depends on the age of the child and stuff. And I think it could just start with the parent affirming things to the kid themselves. So like letting that kid know, you are the smartest kid that I know. You're the sweetest person. You're the most caring. You're so intelligent. Like having the parent speak that life into the child, then the child might get used to hearing it more and being, more comfortable with it. One of the questions that I have in the dream score is, and I don't want to give away, I mean, this is a big one. When people get to this question, like, whoa, can you look in the mirror and say, I love you? And you wouldn't believe how many people have trouble doing that. And it could even be starting with something like that, because when that's kind of the ultimate sign of showing, if you actually say it and you mean it, that shows that you're really doing something special, in your life, because so many people can't do that. So it's worth striving to. So with kids, I think it'll start with the parents affirming for them, and then letting the kid practice it, and maybe repeating it, and maybe having the kid practice on the parents, saying wonderful things about the parents, affirming positive things, so they get used to saying things that are positive and go from there. But again, like I said, there's resources in the book that can help parents teaching kids how to do it, and maybe make it more fun, maybe gamify it in some way so they can up level, right?
That's great. Well, and I can think of, we talk about conversation starters for a dinner table. We give gratitude for things in our day. Why not everyone compliment the person to your right on a Tuesday, and everyone compliment the person to your left on a Wednesday? That's building that muscle, right?
Yep. That's exactly right. That's a beautiful idea. And that's what I love, is when parents could think of ideas and how they could implement this themselves in their lives. But, people could always reach out to me and ask questions more specifically, like, hey, I'm having trouble with this. I'm happy to guide them as much as I can. But like I say, I have so many resources for them that they'll probably be able to figure it out. But if not, I'm happy to help however I can.
Yeah. Well, in that vision of getting out of bed and loving your life and looking forward to the day, like put it on your armor for the day. Like, to me, that sounds like two things. One, it sounds like a grand ideal that I'll never reach. And two, it sounds like you. That's probably like, I really believe that that's how you get out of bed. So that's a vision and an encouragement for us that it's possible. So that's pretty cool. You skipped A, you opened my curiosity loop. You are not getting out of here without completing the loop, Dr. Brian. Why'd you skip A?
Good. I skipped A because if a word DREAMA made sense, it would work, but it's dream, so the A has to be there. But the truth of the matter is, the A is being an adjustment, which is being in balance mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally, and having optimal brain-body communication through the nervous system. So when we have a strong D.R.E.A.M, we should stay in adjustment, right? And so the whole idea about being an adjustment is, because we live our lives through our nervous system, right? Every organ, every muscle, every gland, every tissue, every cell in the body knows exactly what to do, when to do it, and how to do it, because the brain tells it so. And so, when people hear, oh, adjustment, they think it's chiropractic. No, you get a chiropractic adjustment. Being an adjustment is very different. It's much bigger. Getting an adjustment falls into the A, of course, but there are so many other things that we do in our lives that keep us in adjustment. And that's really important. And the way to stay in adjustment is by living the dream lifestyle and adapting to chemical, physical, and emotional stressors. So a chemical stressor might be foods that we eat that we might have an allergy to, might be genetically modified, have pesticides in it, pollution that we breathe in, drugs pushed or prescribed. It might be a life-saving drug, but it's still a chemical toxin. So you got to find a way to detoxify yourself after, purify. So we want to limit, and the ones we can't limit, neutralize those chemical stressors as much as possible. Then you have your physical stressors. That could be a car accident, a fall, poor posture, being on your device like this all day long. Kids are on tablets like I've never seen before. I mean, that affects respiration, it affects immune health, it affects digestion, cardiovascular system. So, and then everybody working from home, during the pandemic, they have poor ergonomic stations, all physical stressors.
How many of you out there just kind of trying to straighten up because you're listening to the chiropractor? I was like, oh, are my feet? I'm standing right now. So I was like, oh, are my feet right? Are my hips cocked? You just start thinking about it when you're aware.
Yeah. In fact, when I write about this in the book, I make everyone stop at one point and I say, okay, look at your posture right now as you read this book. Yeah. Is this a posture that's good for your nervous system? Because if we don't adapt to those stressors, right, we'll go out of adjustment. The bones will physically misalign and put pressure on the nervous system and cause interference between the brain and the body. So while a chiropractor may be the professional that's going to help get you back into alignment, we have to do so many things to stay in adjustment and to keep you in adjustment. So super important on the physical stressors. And then there's the emotional stressors. That could be finances, it could be relationships, it could be things at your job, with your boss, could be things with their kids, with tests and classmates and, teachers. There's so many emotional stresses that people deal with on a daily basis. So the idea of the dream lifestyle is to avoid and neutralize as many chemical, physical, emotional stresses as possible so you could stay in adjustment and live the dream life that you and every family wants to enjoy.
Well, you just speak this truth to us so well. And three things jumped out at me about that. And first, I right away used to use the word adapt. And that one just like jumped right out at me, not only because it started with A and I was looking for the A, but you said adapt instead of, avoid or eliminate. And yes, then you said, yeah, reduce the toxins. But let's be honest, we live on planet Earth, like we're going to have some toxins. And so just that idea of adapting to them and helping our bodies figure out how to get rid of or how to neutralize. I think that's another paradigm shift for parents. And I hope people are really paying attention to that and thinking about how they can help their families do that. And not just because sometimes if we think we have to only avoid and reduce, there's a bit of a fear there. Right. We become fearful of the world. So rather than being fearful of the world, we can build ourselves up and put on that armor. I think that's a beautiful picture. And as a chiropractor, I thought the second thing I thought was really interesting was that you didn't just say your spine needs to be in alignment. You talked about the nervous system. And I think that's central to you, that everything kind of comes back to how can we serve our nervous system so that it can serve us. I think that's really, really important. And then third, we got to talk about tablets. If I'm going to be talking about a chiropractor who just mentioned kids looking down at their screens, what is the best way for parents to teach their kids to be on a screen? Because I walk into a room and my boys are playing tablet with their friends, which is, it's limited, right? We limit that. We don't let them play for 6 to 8 hours. But I'll walk in and say, watch your posture, boys. But I'm not exactly sure that I've trained them in like the best way. So teach us, Dr. Brian, how do we teach, how do we have our kids or our own selves on our devices safely?
Yeah. So, and I have this resource in the book. I got a diagram of it and everything about what good posture is when you're at a computer on a tablet. But the big thing that you have to remember is, especially like if you're sitting on a couch, you're not at a desk, right? Because ergonomics on a tablet is different from being on a computer. The biggest thing on the tablet is to not have the head forward. That is the worst thing, because think about this. Think about if you had a bowling ball, right? Because what is the average bowling ball, right? If it's a kid's bowling ball, maybe 8 pounds, or an adult's up to 14 pounds or something like that. The head weighs that much, right? Between 10 and 18 pounds, depending on the kid, the age of the kid and everything. So imagine if you had a bowling ball on top of a stick, right? So you have something big and round on top of a stick. And if you just do this, and parents, you could do this right now, take a finger and just put it straight up and put like a ball on top and push straight down. You feel the tension in the finger, not too big of a deal, but it's not great. Now bend the finger a little bit forward and push down and see what happens.
Everything fell over.
Everything fell over. So imagine putting a bowling ball on top of your neck and your bowling ball, you're not straight. Bam, everything's going to cause all that tension there. And that's where you see these kids. I've seen more forward head posture. They call it tech neck, text neck, all of those different terms. It's horrible. Like I said, I've got tons of research that show how digestion, respiration, heart health, immune health is all affected negatively when you have forward head posture like that. And these tablets are causing it. So the number one thing is to get it to the head is back. So that might mean bringing the tablet up, right?
Okay.
Putting cushions under your kids' arms, put them in a certain place where they're not just sitting. And I see when I was in practice for 23 years, I would see kids sitting there in the office like this, and I would just go up to them and I would look at the parent. I'd be like, because I got my New York sarcasm no matter whether I was in California or New York. And I'd look at the parent and I'd be like, why don't you just write me a check for like $20,000 right now? And they'd look at me, I'm like, well, if you let your kid be on the tablet like that, we'll never get their neck to be totally straight. So it's always me doing it. Just like, a parent, somebody who keeps their wallet in their back pocket. I'm like, no, keep doing that because I want to boat one of these days. So, every time you sit down, you throw your hips off, right? That's the same thing. Every time I see a kid or an adult with their head forward, and I'll just literally, I'll see somebody, even an adult doing texting on the phone or Facebook on the phone while they're waiting to see me. I'll stop what I'm doing. I'll walk over and I'll just go like this. And to make a point.
Is there a difference between looking down and having your head forward and down, or is any down below the level of the eye gonna hurt?
Yeah, it's hard to look down without having your head forward,
Okay.
because it's that tilt down that it's automatically going to change that trajectory.
Okay.
So really what you want to do is you want to have the tablet at eye level. And so that means having it on a desk or on a table, or you put yourself in a position where you can do it. Like you could do it laying in a bed, like you could prop your knees up, put a pillow on your knees or something like that,
Sure.
and just have it so your head is straight. I mean, you see it where they prop up the pillows and stuff and they bring their head forward like that too. That's not any better. So you want to have your head neutral where your ears are over your shoulder and your eyes are as straight as possible in alignment. So however you have to put the device, whether it's a phone or a tablet, you've got to have it so that you're in neutral position, ears straight over your shoulders. So if I were to take some type of a hanger or something like that, and I put the hanger by the ear, that would be level with the shoulder. It'd be one line, one plane of existence.
Well, I'm really glad I asked, because that is not a small adjustment, right? To use your A word again, that is not a small adjustment, because when I walk into the room and I've got two boys and their two friends, I sort of do a scan and I'm like, well, the friends are like completely collapsed, right? I'm assuming it's a little worse to be holding the device right by your belly button so that you're completely like bent over like a snail. And maybe my boys are like out a little bit, but their head's still down. It just doesn't seem as collapsed. Probably that's the point where my voice in my head needs to say, health is not graded on a bell curve, Katie. Just because they're slightly less out of alignment than their friends doesn't mean they won't be in chiropractic forever. So all the way up. So that's, every so often when I think of mutual friend Margie Bissinger, who's also into posture and alignment, and I know she says you got to bring that phone all the way up like this.
Yep.
Sometimes I do it, but most of the time, I'm kind of like down and out and thinking that that's an improvement. But okay, so, revising our systems in the Kimball house. Thank you.
You got it. And so my one takeaway that people should take from the A is have a chiropractor on your healthcare team. Now, the idea is not everyone should need to get adjusted, but go there and see if you're in adjustment. See if you or your children have any of these misalignments that we call subluxations that irritate the nervous system, and get them corrected. Sometimes you can get away with going to the chiropractor 1 to 4 times a year. Sometimes when you go for that initial checkup, you might need to go through a corrective care stage where you might need a lot of consistent care for a period of time. And so the longer things go out of adjustment, the more care you or your child will need. So the more frequent you get checked, just like going to the dentist 1 to 4 times a month, 1 to 4 times a year for a cleaning, you can go to the chiropractor 1 to 4 times a year if you're actually doing all the right things to stay in adjustments. And have a chiropractor on your healthcare team, you must.
Yeah, because I'm guessing our bodies want to be straight. Our bodies want to be stacked the way, well, it's not really straight, it's a curvature of the spine, but our bodies want to be in the proper alignment. We just don't always listen to our bodies. Go figure, right? There were a couple parts in the book that jumped out at me that not many other people talk about. And one of them was, you said, we're taught at family gatherings to never talk about religion and politics. And that does a disservice, because we should instead be teaching kids how to talk about controversial topics. And I don't even know if anything more needs to be said. I just wanted to share that nugget because it's one of those that's been tumbling around in my head recently, how different the ideal is from the norm right now. And then another was on sleep, right? Now, sleep, obviously, no one can argue that sleep is a key pillar of health, right? Everybody agrees on that. But You teach something that I also don't hear often, but just had read, I think Dave Asprey say the same thing, that a regular wake time is more important than a regular bedtime. This felt personally offensive because I love sleeping in, and I have a policy that never wake a sleeping teenager because they have to get up so dang early on the weekdays that I'm going to let my teens sleep forever. So am I doing this backward? Help me out here. And not just me. This is not all about me, dear listeners, and you're listening in. We're helping you all too.
Well, it's an interesting thing because we're going to shake it all on its head. And that is, the lifestyle often determines the quality of somebody's sleep. It's not about the quantity in sleep. It's about the quality. We hear that all the time about quantity versus quality. And so when you're really living a dream lifestyle and you're keeping, let's just say, for example, somebody can't fall asleep at night. Well, what are they doing right before they go to sleep? Are they watching the news? Are they watching a horror movie? Are they reading something that's stimulating their mind? Are they getting blue light into their body? Are they eating the right foods? Does their belly bother them? Are they consuming things that are toxic to them that keeps them from getting that good night's sleep? And when you live the dream lifestyle, you should be able to wake up refreshed no matter what time it's at, because you should be able to go to sleep at the right times. I had to relearn how to sleep. I was a horrible sleeper. I use something called brain tap. I talk a little bit about it in the book. It's a new brain entrainment type of thing. It's awesome. It's like this thing with affirmations that you're listening to, and then there's like these lights that flicker, and it actually rewired. It did something to retrain my brain because ever since I'm a baby, I've just never been a sleeper. But I don't sleep more than 6.5 hours a night. And people ask me, how do I have so much energy? And I say, because of the lifestyle. I do my meditation, I do my exercise, I get my massage, I get my adjustments, I do the acupressure, I do all the right things. I think a certain way, and I limit the toxins. So I wake up pretty much the same time every day, but just when it's time for me to wake up. I don't use an alarm. I use an alarm maybe twice a year, and that's when I'm on a flight for like 4:30 in the morning, 5:30 in the morning, doing a talk somewhere. And that's only just in case. I mean, when I was flying out to do this talk last week, I had to wake up at 4:30 in the morning, to get an Uber, and I woke up at 4:20 without the alarm waking me up. So, I mean, it's like when you're healthy and you're living the dream, the quality of your sleep should be so much better. So yeah, your wake time needs to be consistent to set good rhythms. And that's a good strategy, or actually it's more of a good tactic. The strategy to be figuring out how to get a good night's sleep so you wake up refreshed and well rested. The tactic is setting a set wake time. And for people that sleep in on the weekends or when they're not working and stuff, could be more detrimental. Now, I also address this in the book, is that I understand that there are phases of life, hopefully, where people go through certain times where they just can't get good night's sleep. Maybe they're a newborn, mom or dad, maybe their job, they work the night shift or something like that. There are reasons why people just can't get a good night's sleep in general. But overall, the vast majority of people, they're just not doing the right tactics in order to wake up refreshed. And when you're doing the right things, waking up at a consistent time every morning should work. And you won't see me sleeping any later on the weekends than during the week. When I'm done sleeping, I wake up and I get into action.
That's super interesting. I mean, I always think about waking up at a consistent time without an alarm is like the end game. That's the effect in the cause and effect relationship. But I think what you're saying is it's somewhere in the middle. It's part of the cause in getting your body into its proper rhythm.
Yeah, if you're doing all the right things, you won't need an alarm. Period. It doesn't need to be the end game. That's right. Just do all the right things. And the Dream Score addresses that. It has like a couple of questions related to that to see if you're setting yourself up for success. And again, what are you doing when you're going to bed?
So how will knowing someone's Dream Score impact a family? What does this look like in real life?
So what'll happen is, they get a fancy report, and it's got a cool graphic on it that looks like, as you saw, looks like an iPhone battery. Because how people freak out, right, when their battery is depleting and they don't have a charger with them, right? So this is the feeling that I want them to have is, hey, is your battery depleting or is your battery charging, right? Are you doing more energy drainers or more energy gainers in your life? And so on and so forth. So you get to see your score, and it kind of gives it a category of where you are in your current health and what direction you're going, because it's hard to make it dynamic for someone when you showing a battery charger. This is the test right now, but I don't have anything to compare it to. So I did the best that I could to show the trajectory of whether they're going towards salutogenesis, which is the creation of health, or pathogenesis, which is the creation of disease. right? So it kind of indicates as best as I can do to do that. And then it'll tell you exactly where in the book to read if you want to delve deeper into it. And I recommend people taking the Dream Score more than once. Take it as frequently as you want. Make some changes. Make 3 to 4 changes. Read the book, make 3 to 4 changes, take it again, see if there's a difference. And the Dream Score questions are not going to be symptom-based. It's not going to ask about your heart rate, your blood pressure, your BMI. It's going to want to know why your heart rate is what it is, why your blood pressure is what it is, why your relationships might be strained at home, at work, at school, and so on and so forth. Why? And that's the question that enough healthcare providers are not asking.
And what I love about your book, I think you say, you can go work with a practitioner and spend a lot of money and a lot of time and do a lot of testing, or you can at least start with the DIY version, which the Dream Score makes very personalized and very customized, which is super cool. Well, this has been an amazing conversation. I have lots and lots of practical nuggets, which is what I love. We're like, okay, I'm going to do this, this, and this today in the Kimball house. But I love to leave parents with one final practical step, something they can accomplish right away and feel a quick win. So what should parents do? One thing we should do with this information?
If I were to say one thing, is start looking at your food package labels and cut out any of those 4 things that I said before. And that's the high fructose corn syrup, artificial sweeteners, hydrogenated oils, and food colorings. Get those out. That's number 1. And you'll see health improve immediately.
That is awesome and actionable. Thank you so much, Dr. Brian Stenzler. Everywhere we share this video, this podcast, we will include the Dream Wellness Score link so that you can go there and take it. And yeah, my poor teenagers, they never quite know what's going to happen in our house when I have an interview, but they're taking some quizzes today. It's going to be test day. Kids Cook Real Food audience, this has been Dr. Brian Stenzler, author of Dream Wellness. And I'm Katie Kimball for Kids Cook Real Food. I'll see you next week on the Healthy Parenting Connector.